Hello, friends, and welcome to the Noclip podcast, episode 41. We're going to have an interview later on in this podcast, but it's been a little while, Frank, since I've just realized that people who listen to this podcast have just had a sort of a roulette wheel of random people I've been talking to, which may or may not be the most nice, enjoyable thing for them. I'm not sure. So I thought, hey, let's just catch up, man. Let's just talk to the main man, Frank Howley, Noclip community producer, shoot the shit and talk about what's going on. What's going on with you?
I'm good. My summer was very busy. Now the fall, things are slowing down. So now I feel like I have more time than ever to actually play video games and catch up on my backlog. So yeah, just trying to stay calm and cool. And so yeah, I'm doing all right.
Excellent. Now let's talk about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater for like 4 hours.
Yes, perfect.
They nailed it, didn't they?
It's. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. It was such a gift. Yeah, it's amazing.
How far have you gotten, right? Because I have 3 of the 6 legendary challenges left, and I almost have one which is gonna knock, because the last one's just you've done all the challenges, I think. So I'm like so close. But how have you gone with the challenges
stuff? So like within the first weekend, I feel like I did 95% of the content. Like in the sense of I played like 20 hours in maybe 2 days, which probably wasn't healthy, but it's like
wow.
I devoured it. So I knocked out like the amateur, the pro, and the legendary challenges. The hurdle now is doing all the gaps and all the hard get theres, which are these insane gap challenges. And that's when it was like, okay, I need to take a break. But my level.
What's the worst gap? What's the one you can't nail?
Oh man, I'm like somewhere in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, but the one that took me about like 3 separate nights of grinding to get was in Roswell, the upper deck gap, which took like maybe 2 hours to land. But then in order to get the get there, you have to then do a manual and all these other grinds. So that one.
What's the get there?
So a get there is a challenge in the game where if you do a string of gaps. It's basically one giant gap challenge, but you can cheese it by just going on YouTube and seeing how other people did it. But even then, it's still really hard. But yeah, everything else like the baseline, doing all the goals again, even the individual skater challenges, like it's so good. And there's a speedrun mode in there too.
Fun. It's so they've figured out a way of making, because like I would play Tony Hawk levels over and over and over again just to listen to music and do it or whatever, but they've like given me reasons. And like at the start I was like, oh, I don't know about this. Do I really care about getting, a certain crooked grind on a certain thing? And then I fell into the flow of it and really just I love it, man. It's like the usability of that game, the fact that you can like in between runs change the controls for each trick. You're like, God, they've thought about everything. It's fantastic. Do you know what the other weird thing is that I totally didn't figure out was that I sort of started with the series on Tony Hawk's 2, and then I played all of them to death, probably up until about Project 8 or whatever. But like the first game, I think I played at a friend's house a couple of times, but I guess I'd never really played it that much. And I didn't realize until I was playing them. So in a way, I feel like I got to play a new Tony Hawk game too, because all those old levels are all like reskinned and amazing, and they're so good, and I didn't remember any of them. So it was just like I have all the downhill jam ones have been a lot of fun. It's been great.
My favorite feature with it is the fact that they incorporated basically all the modern movesets of Tony Hawk, like the wall plants and everything, like because
the reverbs
revert.
What is it?
Yeah, it feels
revert,
as sharp and snappy to play as Underground 2. So it's like. Because if you really go back to Tony Hawk 1 and Tony Hawk 2, they're good, but they feel sluggish in the sense of just, it's so hard to like, it's hard. It's really hard. But then now you play this, it feels as fast and fun as you remember it. Like it's amazing. Yeah, it's addicting. It's addicting too.
I'm so happy. I was the same as you. I was like talking to my wife about it and being like, they nailed it. It was like Half-Life Alyx again. I was like, they did it. They did the thing. They stuck the landing. It's super good, and you're totally right, because I went back maybe 2 months ago and replayed Tony Hawk 2 on my PlayStation, and I was like, oh dude, this is rough going, kind of, to like string a lot of this stuff together. And when they added in the wall, what's it called, wall jumping? I always forget.
There's the sticker slap, like
the wall plant. Yeah, like you can just. Especially in those Tony Hawk 2 levels, like some of those were just not made for you to be able to do that. Or my favorite one is it's such a cheese, and it's also like not very satisfying. But in the warehouse level, when you go down the ramp, those mini ramps right behind you, the like 3 sets that you can jump out, you can just wall plant that thing up. But there's like no time, so you're just like special grinding and then jumping immediately off that one, and then it's so.
And then what's really good is like if you jump, do the wall plant, and then doing a wall plant gives you enough air to basically do another special mid-air. That way you can just go back and forth. Like
you're on a different level to me, man.
Yeah, well, that's the fun upper tier of play. And then, but the best is in School 2. There's like spots between lockers you can do it back and forth, and then specifically School 2, the gym. There's bleachers, and it just connects to a wall, and there's like 5 tiers of bleachers, so you can just keep smashing between all of them.
I hadn't thought about that, because the frustrating part about that, the pool in that indoor area is that there's the diving boards stop you from being able to infinite it, which was in the original too. Dude, man, I just like kick flipping TC's roof gap was like the first thing I did, and I didn't even look at the challenges. I was like, I know this one. Of course, I heel flipped it by accident the first time. Yeah, they nailed it. What have you been playing? Anything else? Apart from that?
The 2 things I've been playing, one is like the Mario 3D collection, which is it's good. It's the Mario games.
What's in that again?
It's Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy, and everything's been reworked to fit on the Switch controller, which plays really well. And then the other thing I've been playing is Final Fantasy VII Remake, which came out in April. I just never dug into it, and it's really good. Like I can't believe how detailed everything is. And then the combat is really, really fun in it too. So yeah, just catching up on big games.
That's wild. I wonder, have we heard anything about the next one of those? Because that's all just Midgar, right?
Yeah, it's like I think they said it was maybe going to be a trilogy or something. So it's supposed to cut off at a certain point. I don't know when. I'm still having fun with it, but it seems like they were eager to announce all the Final Fantasy 16 stuff before getting back to 7 Remake 2. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if 16 what will come out sooner. I don't know.
And we need to talk about this from a Noclip perspective, because Naoki Yoshida is leading 16, which we totally basically sort of telegraphed that's probably what's maybe going to happen at the end of the Final Fantasy 14 doc. So congratulations to him and to all the folks over at Square in Japan. You can check out our behind the scenes now on the YouTube channel, because it's up there as part of Noclip Summer Jam, which I'll talk about in a second, because I'm surrounded by lanyards here. I'm trying to get them out of this house. I have been playing a lot of Spelunky 2.
Oh yeah.
Which came out on PlayStation 4 maybe 2 weeks ago now. Came out on PC as of this recording. I think it was yesterday it came out. I've been absolutely loving it. Me and my wife have been playing it co-op. It's like Hades, where they're games that I just don't feel the desire to beat that way. I'm just enjoying playing them at their own pace and playing them over years and months, and at least that was the case with Hades up until recently when they hit 1.0. But yeah, I'm just loving it. I'm really enjoying exploring the world. Talking to Derek on the podcast a couple of weeks ago was a lot of fun, because there's a lot to explore in those early levels. Even with Olmec, when you fight him for the first time, it's earlier than usual, and it's like a 2-stage fight that you can jump out of halfway through. You can just kind of bail, or you can stick around. Like, there's loads of ways you can kind of play that game to the pace you want to. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to, I don't know, I used to have a bee on my bonnet about completing games that used to kind of ruin them for me, and I feel like with Spelunky now I'm just kind of chill. I'm just enjoying it. Although with Tony Hawk, I definitely have that.
Have you been able to
that bug?
Have you been able to finish a full run of Spelunky too? Like, because I had to pause after 2 zones. Like, I can't get that far, and I'm still trying.
I can get to the I can get to the post Olmec level pretty handily, and I feel like if I really cared about beating those levels, I could get past those. I've gotten to so I guess that's 4-4 maybe. The first area is the trickiest to learn and figure out. The forest area I basically have stayed away from because it's a fucking nightmare. The jungle was in Spelunky. The lava one's easy. The lava one is there's very little. I think the lava one reminds me of the ice cave level in the original Spelunky, where as long as you're able to get to the exit, as long as you have a means to do it and don't trap yourself, which usually happens if you move the lava, it's actually a pretty straight shot. And as long as you have enough air control to, in the ice level, you have to use ropes to get down because there's a lot of negative space you could fall down. In this one, it's just you can fall into the lava, which will kill you really quickly. But it's not as intimidating to me as the jungle one. So the lava one I can get past pretty quick. Olmec I can beat, or I can get past the first part of that fight 95% of the time, because it's just a matter of patience of getting Olmec to like crush things. And it's the same thing. You stand underneath, you move to the side. You stand underneath, you move to the side. As long as you don't go too close to an edge or move late and are patient, you can do it. So then I get to the beautiful, like, sort of Chinese-inspired level, I guess, which is like upside-down zombies and stuff. It's really weird, but I've not gotten past that yet. So how have you been doing at it?
I unlocked like the shortcut after zone 1 and then just practicing through zone 2. But I think the main thing is I'm waiting for like the online multiplayer stuff to come out because I really want to play it with my girlfriend.
Oh, cool.
And because we don't have like the local co-op option, so it's like, oh, I'm so excited. But now that it's on PC, I'm having more friends messaging me like, oh shoot, I want to play. So
I knew that was going to happen. Everyone's going to buy it on 2 because Derek Hughes a clever boy. I'm sure that wasn't intentional, but yeah, it's cool. And the dogs or the pets or whatever we call them now give both characters a lick, so you don't have to like hand off the dog to someone so that they get the extra heart at the end of a level. You both get it, which is pleasurable, because who doesn't like getting licked by a dog or a cat or a mouse? Maybe it's a hamster. I don't know. It's cute, whatever it is. We're playing anything else? Anything else come to mind?
I'm kind of excited for Crash Bandicoot 4 on Friday, so I'm looking forward to that. It's gonna be also weird going from Mario straight to Crash, so I can kind of like settle the debate what's better. On? Yeah, I don't know. Let's see.
Tony Hawk as well. It's like Jesus.
Oh man.
It's like Hollywood now. Games are just and Final Fantasy.
I'm fine. It's all familiar. I'm okay with it. Yes, I know how Crash is gonna play. I know how Tony Hawk's gonna play. Like I'm down in Final Fantasy. Yeah.
We're just like horror movies now. It's like they're doing a remake. Blumhouse is doing a remake of The Craft. I think I saw a trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just we're all riffing on the old days. I can't think of anything else I'm playing apart from. I guess that's a lot of games. Still chopping away at Flight Sim, which has been fun. I'm still playing Hades. Which has been it's been wild seeing everyone playing Hades after 2 years of us playing Hades and nobody playing Hades or like the odd person, I got a lot of Twitter followers, and Noclip did, of Hades players, and like the Hades community is definitely like part of the Noclip community. A lot of our patrons are Hades players, but like seeing all of the like journalists and streamers playing Hades and now going back to watch like the views on the episodes have all shot up again. People are like, yeah, you should check this out.
It's like it's really cool. Like, because again, with Noclip now, it's like what, 3 hours of the behind the scenes series, like, and it's growing. And so if you just got into Hades, not only you have this whole game to get into and almost the complete series to get into, it's like there's so much content there that everyone's been building up for so long. So
I wonder what it's like for people to go back and watch, like, because the first episode there's hardly any of the game even in it, because it's all about pre-release, but then it's like the first patch, like the game. I want to go back. I haven't even gone back and watched them in a little while, but I bet the game looks real rough in the second episode. I bet it's like super dodgy. So for episode 6, which we're sort of like working on, Jeremy's filmed some stuff. We filmed launch. We're doing interviews with them about the reviews and all that sort of stuff. But they've given me access to a bunch of assets that I hadn't even had for the first episode about the concept stuff for Hades. So we're going to kind of throw back a little bit too, which will be fun. We'll have a bunch of Hades related like cool announcements coming over the rest of the year. The first of which will be the final episode. But we're going to do some fun stuff with Hades, especially because it's out in the world now and we've kind of got a little community around it. So I'm looking forward to doing some more cool stuff around that. Speaking of which, Summer Jam came and went. Thank you to everyone for supporting Noclip Summer Jam. Thanks to everyone who bought a lanyard. Thanks to everyone who bought a digital ticket. That was a lot of people. Just chucked us a couple of bucks, which was rad. We got a bunch of new patrons as well. Thank you so much for joining up. The lanyards, man. The lanyards are not cheap to ship to Europe. Let me fucking tell you. I miscalculated that a little bit. So the Americans are paying for the European shipping, basically, because the American shipping was like, I tried to skis it. I tried to see if I could send them first class mail, because they're thin enough and they weigh nothing. So if I put them in a good envelope and send them, and I brought them I packaged all the American ones, 80 something. I think we sold 170, 180 lanyards in total. So I had to get a bunch more shipped from China again. I guess that's where they're made in Shenzhen province. They all turned up 3 days after I ordered them. I was like, how the fuck did that happen? From China? but half of them are better from the US. And then I had to like redo them all. She was like, nah, that's not going to work. So that's all right. They only cost like a couple of dollars more. So that was fine. But people should be getting them in the next couple of days because they're all tracked as well. I'm tracking for them all. I haven't gone out, and our t-shirts are handled by a separate company, but I'm doing this all myself. So I haven't emailed everyone their tracking number because I'm hoping they'll get them all, but I'll keep an eye on them in case any of them don't turn up. One of them was in my neighborhood.
Oh, whoa.
One of them was in my, one of them was you.
Yep.
Yeah. I would have just given you one, but thank you for buying it, Frank. I thought that was funny. I was like, Frank, how? No. Someone down the road from you as well got one. There was another one
sweet.
in San Diego. Not that I was like, now I feel like I was just doxing everyone who bought them.
No, it's like, it's fun because it's like, oh, this present's going out here. It's I don't know. Totally. I always feel close when I look at mail like, oh, have a good trip. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
Hope you get that. It was like when we did the Christmas cards. It's kind of like, oh, these are going like the wildest places. One of ours is going to Madagascar.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that's pretty wild. Another one's going to Marrakesh. Speaking of faraway places, beginning with M. So they'll probably take a little while. But yeah, it costs like $14. So I'm bringing it down a little bit. I'm figuring out a way. So they're taking a little bit of time. The non-American ones, apologies, but once they're in the mail, they should be pretty quick. But the American ones should be arriving. I think most people might have them this week. If not, it'll be like Monday of next week. It depends if you have Saturday mail, I guess. But yeah, one of them was in my postcode, and I was like, huh. And then I checked the street name, and I was like, oh yeah, that's in my neighborhood. Like, I wonder, do they know they live near me? I almost thought about hand delivering it, but thought that might be weird. But yeah, thank you to everyone for picking one up. I think I have a couple lying around here because my daughter keeps finding them and seeing the fish on the back, and we have names for her fishes in the bath, and she calls them the names of the fish. So yeah, some of them have gone missing probably because she's hidden them somewhere. What did you think of on the social side of things? What did you think of Summer Jam? It seemed like people were into all the weird videos we put up.
Yeah, it was cool, like, because there was so much stuff going out. So every day, like, new stuff would get bumped, and like a lot more Instagram followers, which was really cool. And then like I was such a huge fan of the Edmund McMillan documentary too that came out during Summer Jam. Like, that was
great work, Jeremy Jane.
Dude, Jeremy killed it there. It was so good. It was awesome. Again, like every like helping run the social media, like every day you see people like Noclip fans saying like, oh, I'm watching this for the weekend, like checking this out. Thanks, Noclip. Glad to support. It's like, thank you guys. Thanks to everyone who supports. Like, it's really, really cool. And we always love to like retweet and share it forward. So again, keep spreading it to your friends. It's really, really cool. Yeah,
the Hades stuff is a really good example of when people share our stuff, like it makes a massive difference, because I think our stuff is kind of sticky. Like when people realize it's around, they're like, oh, and they kind of like, it's one of those types of channels. Like if people aren't into it, they don't care. But like the people who want to know more about games, once they realize we exist, especially when there's like a back catalog, they tend to stick around. So that's pretty cool. In fact, the rest of this podcast is an interview with some folks who were partly inspired by one of our documentaries to make this game. BPM, Bullets Per Minute, it came out, I believe it was September 15th on Steam. It is a roguelike first-person arena shooter rhythm game. So, which feels like playing sort of spin the wheel genre creation. It's kind of like it's like Quake and the Binding of Isaac had a baby, and you can only shoot or reload your gun on like the beat of the song. And it's super fun. I got an email from these guys a couple months back, and I was kind of like, all right, they basically said that one of the guys on the team, Dave, said that he had watched he had inspiration from AI in games. He'd watched some of their videos on an aspect which we talk about in the podcast, and he'd watched the intro to our Doom 2016 doc, where I basically like crush everything to black and red, like a gradient overlay, and it's like, loud Mick Gordon music cut to the music with all like the old school footage and stuff. And I love that intro. It's one of my favorite things I've edited, my favorite intros. But he said he watched that, and that was the inspiration for the sort of like color palette rhythm aspect of it. So that was kind of cool. Or the color palette, yeah. So that was really nice. Have you seen this come across? Because it's actually like when he originally reached out to me, I was like, oh, that's really novel. This game might be fun to play or it might be not. It's you can't tell based on a pitch, but the pitch sounds interesting and I'll give it a go when it comes out. And they sent me an early key and I was like, oh, this is a lot of fun. And I ended up playing a bunch of it. Same as Binding of Isaac, where I got to a certain point and I was like, I'm going to have to like dedicate myself to this. So I'm going to come back to it later on. And I've since come back in the past couple of days. But it's done really well. It's got like almost 2,000 reviews on Steam. So it's selling like hotcakes. They've done a great job and they're super happy about it. It sounds like. Have you come across this at all, Frank?
I forget how it came up, but it somehow ended up in my Steam wish list forever ago. Like I think just because I'm in the field, I love like retro first person type inspired games. But like I saw it, I added my wish list, and it's finally out. I haven't gotten to play it, but I was immediately sold by the concept. And I think it was like I saw a trailer somewhere, and the trailer was like, oh yeah, this is so up my alley. Yeah, but I still need to get my hands on with it, but it looks really, really good.
Yeah, it's kind of like reminiscent of something like Devil Daggers. It came up in the interview. It's one of those types of games. Yeah, so without further ado, we will end this update chatty portion of the podcast. We thought we might do these from time to time. Let us know what you think. Put it in the comments. Shoot us an email, podcast at noclip.video, or hit us up on Twitter at Danny Dwyer. You're just at Frank Howley, right?
Yeah, on Twitter.
Keeping it on brand. None of this handle bullshit. What was your first handle online on the internet?
Cyberfranks 2003.
Sniper Franks.
No, Cyberfranks.
Whoa, dude, I think that might be worse.
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, Cyberfranks 2003 at yahoo.com. And
wow.
I was so advanced, I made that username in 2002, thinking I don't want to have an outdated username. I don't know. That's a fifth grader making an email address? I don't know. But Cyberfranks 2003 was my first handle. And then
wow.
WrestleManiac, Resident Evil fan, just this whole, and then eventually it was Frank Howley. But,
my first was smack_daddy86. I don't know. So both of us sound like porn names.
It was just what was in the by osmosis. What was on the internet back then? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know what the fuck Smack Daddy refers to. I think it's like some sort of. I think it's an attempt for a white Irish guy to
Smack Daddy.
Have some sort of affinity with American rap culture or something.
Sounds like
I think that's where it was coming from.
Yeah.
Maybe I listened to one too many Cypress Hill songs and thought that was I don't know.
Smack Daddy. All right, that sounds cool.
Yeah, played too much Kingpin Life of Crime. Anyway, yeah, thanks for checking out the podcast. Let us know what you think of this little intro MacGuffin, and enjoy this interview with Dave Jones and Josh Sullivan, two of the folks behind Bullets Per Minute, BPM. Check it out. Hey folks, welcome back to Noclip. Danny here, and I am delighted to be joined by two of the folks behind BPM, Bullets Per Minute. There's not a surefire way of getting on this podcast, but telling us that your game was partly inspired by one of our documentaries is a pretty clever way of doing it. So let's find out if it's true or all just a clever ruse. I'm joined by Dave Jones and Josh Sullivan from Awe Interactive over in the UK. Gentlemen, thank you so much for making the time to talk to me today. Have you had dinner yet? I know it's 6 o'clock over there right now.
Yeah.
No, I haven't. I'm planning to afterwards.
Okay. Do you know what you got?
I've just been so excited. Pizza. I'm having pepperoni pizza tonight.
Perfect. Well, you're in Central Wales, and as we all know, that is the traditional dinner of a good Welsh family.
Absolutely.
Dave, you're closer to Derby, is that right?
Yeah. I grew up in Wales. Me and Josh grew up in the same town, but yeah, in Derby now.
Good stuff. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that before we jump into the game, because I lived in England for a time. I spent about 5 years in London, and every once in a while at GameSpot UK, we'd be sent out to talk to some developers around the country, and for the most part the development world over there is kind of centralized in a couple of places. There's obviously London, Guildford, of course, the sort of Leamington Spa, Birmingham stretch where Codemasters is, and I guess I'm not used to talking to folks who are sort of in some of the more remote parts of the country. Do either of you guys have any history working for any other studios in the UK, or have you always been sort of where you are at the moment?
So I worked for Activision Leeds for a short amount of time, working on a mobile Call of Duty game.
Right.
Not the big recent one, but I think it was a Call of Duty Strike Team. But yeah, that's about it. I left uni and went indie pretty much immediately because I didn't want to have to work for anyone. So I started a company called Bulkhead with some friends, which made a game called the Turing Test, and then moved on to make BPM.
Excellent. What about yourself, Josh? Did you have any priors before this project?
Not professionally, no. BPM is my first professional game. I've been making indie games sort of my whole life, really. Just posting stuff to the internet. Me and Dave, we'd make games when we were in high school together, and we'd bring them in on flash drives and put them into the PCs and show all our friends and try and get them to go, wow, this is amazing. And it was such a great experience. But yeah, BPM is my first proper game. So,
nice, congratulations. Yeah. Tell me about some of those games, because we the past couple of weeks here on Noclip, we've had both on the video side and on the podcast, we've had multiple people who have gone on to make popular indie games who all were cutting their teeth, I guess, in ActionScript on Flash. What were you guys working on? What age are we talking about? Because I think you're like a shade younger than some of those folks. Was this like C# stuff or Java, or what was it?
So we were all a game maker, right?
Oh, cool.
Yeah, fully game maker. Yeah.
Yeah, Josh did the more popular ones, so he got some. There's small fry, but like he got some to like, I don't know, like 200,000 people or something, and I'd help him out on his ones.
Good stuff.
Like I remember the early days of Game Maker when it was just becoming big. They had their own website. I'd made this game and I uploaded it to it one day, and then I remember I was in college and I went into the library to check I think I was on my break or whatever, to go on the internet. I went on the page and there was my game like on the front page, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is amazing!" And the creator of Game Maker, he reviewed it in his blog or something, and he was putting all these points at how the game design was this and that, and I was like, "Flipping heck, I didn't
I've made
know
it.
That would happen."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Back then, that was you making it. It's like this: someone's noticed your game, or you're on the front page of something. That was like amazing. That was you making it back then.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, like my early parts of breaking through in any sort of way on video games was having. I used to upload videos to GameSpot's like user. Like we had community tabs, right? And like every once in a while, one of them would get featured on the homepage, and it was like the best thing in the world. I remember once you'd have your avatar as like a tiny 15 by 15 pixel would be on like the sidebar on GameSpot, and I didn't upload mine. I just had it. I had it like hosted on one of my web servers because I was a web developer, but it was only like, I don't know, 6 kilobytes or something. It was tiny, but the server got crashed because it got, GameSpot was getting viewed like 6 million times a day or something. So it got loaded every time that anyone hit the homepage. It was a nightmare. What was that game called? Do you remember what it was about and what it was called?
Yeah, it was a 3D puzzle game called Core Days, where you just played as a ball and you jump on tiles, and every time you jumped on the tile would expire and you couldn't jump on it again.
Okay.
And the idea was you had to hit every tile without re-hitting one you've already done, or hit a tile that will make you die.
Excellent.
So hit all the tiles, basically.
That's clever. It's like a cooler world, floors hot lava kind of.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Nice one. And here you are today. Sorry, go ahead, Dave.
I guess I don't know how much we should talk about it, but we never did it as our current company, so I can talk about it. But we also like remade the entirety of like the first level of Doom in Game Maker.
Oh, really?
So like we were one of those people who were like, what if Doom was on the internet and you could play it in your browser or whatever? Well, you can do that with Game Maker.
Yeah, we rebuilt the Doom engine in Game Maker. Like you can't tell the difference at all. It's on. I think it's on Game Jolt. It's got like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of views. I haven't looked in ages.
Oh,
but
smashing.
Yeah, we spent ages, like, probably about 12 years ago now, we built this thing, and everyone was like, wow, I can't believe you this was made in Game Maker. It looks just like Doom and stuff.
Just to legally distance myself, it was all Josh and I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you wear your inspirations on your sleeve, and you've obviously got priors in first-person game design then. So, I mean, let's talk about BPM. Bullets per minute, I guess, if I was to explain it to somebody who hadn't seen it, it is to me, it's basically Quake meets Binding of Isaac, which are two games that I absolutely adore for completely different reasons. Ultimate, kind of no common ground there except maybe engaging with enemies or something. Like, it's a first person game. It's a roguelike sort of room by room game. But it's also a rhythm. I don't even say rhythm game because a rhythm game feels kind of derogatory in some sort of way. Like, because we used to work for Activision because there was a time there where we had quite a lot of them. But it's a game where you're kind of forced and to do everything on a beat, jumping, firing, the various stages of reloading a gun. Is that accurate? How did you pitch it to the business people and to your friends when you were talking about this original idea?
Yeah, like I think the coolest thing someone said back to me is Baby Driver the video game, which I think is like a very accurate explanation. But yeah, no, like the game came to me in an afternoon when I was walking around the office. I've told this story, I think, and so I walked around the office and my friend plays Binding of Isaac and he plays Crypt of the Necrodancer, which are two, top-down, four-way room Zelda-like exploration thingamajigs. And I like to watch him play those at lunchtime because they're entertaining games to watch people play because every single time you watch it, it's different. So I just sit behind him and eat my lunch while watching him play his games or whatever. And then I'd go back to my desk and continue to work while always having one monitor open with like documentaries are on it or whatever. So I had the Noclip Doom documentary up and also AI in Games documentary. And one of the things I remember in the documentary was like this like slot system. And obviously because like when you have this recent history of like thinking about music and the Crypt of the Necrodancer music mechanic, like you're thinking sequencer, and as soon as you're thinking sequencer and someone says slot system, you immediately think enemies on a sequencer, music game, music FPS, and also like searching for like a theme of how this game could be done by a super small team, because I was leaving my old indie company that I helped start up and going it with Josh. So trying to think of a way to do it on the cheap in a way. It was like, well, if you cut two colors like at the beginning of the documentary you made, that's got to be 2/3 of the budget, right?
This was the Doom. It's the first part of our Doom, which, by the way, is like almost 4 years now. It's making me feel really old. But yeah, we did I guess I can't even take that much credit for this thing. It was an intro to the doc that had Mick Gordon's music playing over it, which is a cheat code in its own way. And then I just like dropped everything to black and red on a color gradient overlay. And then the video that plays underneath it that like goes to the music is mostly just one of their trailers. Like I didn't edit any of that stuff.
Right.
It just kind of felt right, and I put some Doom clips in and overlaid some of the stuff. But like, yeah, I think maybe that was put together in like 3 hours one Friday night where I was just like slaving over the edit. Those days, every minute of those edits was really difficult because I was still trying to learn a lot. Yeah, so that was is that where the sort of the reduced color palette of BPM kind of came in?
Yeah. We both regret it at this point.
It's probably a lot more work in the end.
Yeah. I was a massive fan of Devil Daggers. If you know that game,
wonderful game, loved it.
So like wanting to do something like Devil Daggers, where it was like breakneck pace. And also super stylized. That was probably the reason like that cemented that decision. And a lot of it's the right decision.
Yeah, where does the regret come from the color palette thing then? Has it been just hearing you say it now? Is it like feedback from people, or was it the amount of work to try and, because it is quite difficult to reduce things to layer of contrast. Like if you're reducing the amount of colors you have, you're reducing the sort of contrast space that you're allowed, which in video isn't so much of an issue because you just need certain things to lift off a 2D plane. But I imagine on a 3D game that probably causes a lot of issues, especially with once you add shadows into that and lighting and dynamic lighting and stuff. Am I going in the wrong way? What was the reason?
No, like that's 100% right. Like there's technically it's like there's three colors. There's the base color of like red. There's the highlight color of yellow, and there's the highlight color of white, which is like the Red Dead Redemption cover art of the game.
Right.
So wanting to be like super bold all the time, it's like why the cover of art of Red Dead looks sick. Why can't I play that? But I think the reason that we regret it, or certainly with BPM 2 intend to do differently, is that it feels like we sacrifice some of the potential of the game because people absolutely love the game. Like people are going mad over it. Like some of the messages we're having, it definitely feels like the best thing we've ever worked on, and it's exciting to have those kind of responses. But then occasionally we get, and this would be my favorite game ever if it wasn't red. No, come on. But like it really helped us, I think, in terms of giving us like a big visual identity out there. And like it's really hard to get an indie game even noticed, and because it's so in your face, like I think it has made a massive difference to like the level of interest we've generated, even if it won't be the right decision for the long life of the title.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I think of Devil Daggers, for instance, like the sort of pure, Quake 1 feel of that game, like especially the sort of like gothic levels, the like eldritch horror kind of levels, is the reason I feel like people. It's like the door. It's like the open door for people, right? So it's like, oh, that's interesting, and like I hear what you're saying. Like I bet there is a lot of people who would prefer it to be different, right? You can't please everyone all the time, but it is also like a very distinct, like in the GIFs that were around and the images, it communicates something about the game as well, like that it is, it's not trying to be everything, that it has a certain scope to it, which once I played the game also didn't feel like it was ever taking or moving away from. It always felt like it was on scope. Even the further I got into the game, it felt like, oh yeah, okay, there's new things added in, but it never felt like you had made too much of a game in the wrong direction. It seemed like you had the size of the game you wanted and kind of stuck to it, which in a way enforced that.
I mean that means a lot, because that is like being that most of the game is just me and Josh, and we have two composers, and we've got friends that we rope in for various jobs. Saying that like it was produced well is a nice thing to say, because that's what we tried to make all the decisions to maximize like the game for players. Like that's kind of our ethos, is like if it's like a risky decision or whatever, or one that we think might alienate people, if it's for the players, we'll make that decision. Which you have to if you're on a super small budget.
Yeah,
try to keep it lean.
Time budget, personnel budget. Let's talk about the delineation of responsibilities then. What was, I guess, your primary role, Josh, and how did that differ from Dave's?
Well, my primary roles were level design and sound design. So most of my time was just building levels for the game, coming out with new layouts and stuff like that. That was most of my responsibility on BPM. But then we realized we didn't have anyone to do sound. So Dave was like, "Hey, would you like to do sound?" I said, "Yeah," because I've done like sound stuff before in other things. So yeah, and the sound stuff as well, I suppose.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about the level design, the structure of it, right? Because to me, it feels like that. It's like a arena shooter in a way, that it's like each level has
it's fairly, you sort of, you see the whole level when you get into it, like you understand how big the level is, but there are also, places to hide, like pillars and stuff like that. And then you're moving between different rooms, some of which, have chickens that try and sell you health or baddies of various difficulties. Kind of like Binding of Isaac, you might go in and it's just a bunch of weird slugs that aren't that difficult, or there might be, 8 of the wrong type of enemy that you've struggled with this whole game. Tell us, break down sort of like the design of a level in BPM.
Yeah, so with the combat of BPM, we learned very early on that it's very much a game where you strafe to the left and shoot. So I was very conscious when making the levels to make sure they're very open. And because of that, the levels had to be very open. There couldn't be any sort of like little crevices where you could sort of get stuck in, because if you do, and then enemies like bottleneck you, then you're done then. And then if you die, you blame the level designer, which is me. so yeah, building like every room to me is like a mini arena. That was always my sort of thinking. This has to be some space you can circle round in some kind of capacity.
Was it difficult adding in novelty there, or did the novelty come from different systems, different enemy combinations, that type of thing?
Yeah, it was a challenge at first. I think it was the balance of coming up with something and then putting the AI in, testing it, seeing if it worked, if it didn't work. There was always stuff that didn't work. So we had to go back and forth with that, and maybe it was just something in the AI that needed to be tweaked, or maybe my level just didn't work.
Nice one. Yeah, a lot of testing, I imagine. Before it got out into the real world. I want to also, I guess, talk about I don't know who to talk to this about. Dave, maybe I'll talk to you about it for a sec. I remember starting the game up and being like, all right, if the music is shit, this is over. Like, you have to, if you're making a game that is based on listening to a track, and for the folks at home, like, what we mean is that there's a certain like BPM, there's certain like a rhythm to the game that if you try and click to shoot outside of that, literally the gun won't fire. Like, you have to do it to a certain beat, and that also includes reloading, which is not a single button. For the pistol, is it 3 different things? You like take out the clip.
It's the default pistol is 2, and then like there's another pistol that's 3,
and then the rocket launcher is like 6 for each missile, right? It's like yeah. So I
don't regret that.
I think it was hilarious because it totally takes the edge off of. It's a different way of playing. You have to like really make sure you're in the optimal place for once your launcher's full, or just because you can just fire without it being fully reloaded, I think, as well, right? I think that happens.
Me and Dave were always on the fence about this, because the revolver in the game is just the same. You have to reload each bullet into the chamber of the gun, and I was like, seriously, Dave, people are going to hate that. We have to get rid of that. But we left it in because it really adds some good variety to the actual reloading of it, and most people actually do like it, and they think it's really cool because it's to the beat, and you're like,
not everyone.
Yeah,
not everyone, but I mean, yeah, the majority of people I spoke to said they enjoy it. So
I think if you like rhythm games, you like it, and if you don't, then you don't. Like, because it was kind of like this is what the game is, and I feel like we'd have been doing a disservice or like butchering the game if we just made it so that like we could have just taken reloading out and just made it so you just click on the beat,
right?
And that would have been much easier, much more simple, and arguably it would have reinforced the beat more strongly. But it felt like the idea just wasn't explored. It's kind of like so like one of my favorite game designers is Jonathan Blow, and he always talks about this kind of thing. Like, you don't want to sand the edges off something if it's like going to ruin it. Like, if it's not going to fully explore the idea. So even if it wasn't necessarily fun, I wanted to do it.
Right. I hear what you're saying. Like, you're stretching out in that sort of creative space.
Yeah, and for some people it might not be right, but I think a lot of people really like it. I think some people. It also makes every single gun different.
Yeah.
Like, and it's a massive thing in BPM. It's like, as soon as you pick up a gun, you're like, right, what kind of gun is this? Because each gun has its own like rhythm signature. So like my favorite being the double barrel shotgun, which is like 1 2 chuck chuck 1 2 chuck chuck, and that kind of thing is like it's like that gun has, I don't know, its own time signature, and that's cool. I wouldn't want to take it out.
Yeah, it makes sense if, I think about a lot of roguelikes that are, the weapons are that, or abilities, spells, like that's where a lot of variety comes from. I mean, first person shooters, right? Like the type of gun and the type of enemies, like the chess game that they talk about in our Doom doc, that is very much that. And if you take that out, it becomes less interesting, I think. Like the reloading was always interesting. Every time I got a gun, it was kind of like it wasn't like that sense in Doom where you get a new gun and it's like, great, this is going to be better than the previous gun. It's like when I say, I mean like Doom sort of 1994 or whatever, where it felt more like, oh, how does this slot in? Like, where's the situation where this is the gun to be using? And, where is it actually going to be more difficult than a default gun that I would have been using? Can I talk about the music? Who did the music for you, and how many songs did you scrap before you sort of landed on what you have there? Because I can hear it playing in my song now, the early level music.
Yeah. So actually, it started out with a different composer that was a friend of mine, and he dropped out due to time constraints because he was a mate at the playground in Leamington.
Oh, cool.
And he did we were going for like knife party kind of super intense. Like knife party is gent, like proper heavy metal music, but it's electronica, and that's kind of where we wanted to go at the start. But then when my mate Dave dropped out, we had to come up with a new style. So I went over to my another friend of mine who I knew had done music that sounded a lot like Muse earlier, like when he was at university, and he did this kind of like soaring leads, like singing guitars, no like rapid fire guitars, but instead of that kind of thing, it's all like all focusing on melody, and I really liked that style. I basically gave him the brief of, can you make a Muse album? And make it good.
That's that. Yeah, it does have that like sort of fat bass and a guitar that sounds like it's singing.
Yeah. The massively distorted bass coming from like the song Muse Hysteria or whatever. Like I don't know if he'd approve of me using that comparison. 'Cause he'd be like, no, I went in a different direction. But yeah, he's Sam Horton, and he's sick. And his mate Joe Collinson, who went to music conservatory with him. He does the other bits. So he did the other half of the soundtrack. He does all the crazy guitar stuff.
Right.
So whenever the guitar's going really, really fast, that's Joe.
How many tracks are in the game?
So there's I think there's 11 tracks, which is the 8 chapters of the game, and then there's like 3 bonus tracks.
Nice. So let's talk about the reception. So it seems like it's found its audience. It seems like kind of like Devil Daggers, where I'm seeing it pop up in certain subreddits where I'm like, oh yeah, totally, you folks will love this. And also it has like close to 2,000 reviews on Steam now. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's getting there, yeah.
So
it's getting there.
The game only launched like fortnight ago. I think it was September 15th over here. What's it been like for you guys? Like, has it done where you wanted it? What's it like getting that feedback? How are the past 2 weeks been? Stressful, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think I'd like to hear your thoughts. Actually, sorry, I don't know why I jumped on this question. I want to know.
Oh, me or Josh?
Josh, sorry.
All right.
Oh yeah. Gosh. Well, it's done like so much better than I think we expected. I think we're always cynical. We always like sort of prepare for the worst. It's like, oh, maybe this game, may not do well. Maybe some people will like it. There'll probably be some people who don't like it. But yeah, it's. I know for me personally, but it's totally blown my expectations of how much of a success it could be. So I'm still quite in shock, and I believe Dave is as well. Not that we expected it to do bad, but
releasing an indie game in 2020, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, exactly. If you don't stand out, or if it gets buried by something, no one will ever play it again. Like I released an indie game last year on Steam. I think I sold maybe like 20 copies. I wasn't expecting to sell a lot anyway because it was just a passion thing. I just wanted to get like my own little game done on Steam, sort of thing. But yeah, it's hard. It's tough. It's in the indie business is really tough. But yeah, it's been so good for us so far, and it's been so relieving as well to because I would have hated it that if it had launched and done really really poorly, I would have just been like, worked so long on this and people don't like it, or it didn't, sell that too good, but it did. And it's just so great to celebrate that and go, we can, move on and do other stuff. We can keep supporting the game, and we can just keep, doing this, which is really cool. So I'm very happy. So
Yeah.
What about?
I think we knew there was going to be a portion of people that weren't going to like it because 4%, I think it's 4% of the population have amusia or something like that, which is literally like they have no perception of pitch. So I don't know what it is for like rhythm, but I imagine it's somewhere similar. So we knew there were going to be some people who liked shooters and were going to try it and then absolutely hate it. And those people definitely exist, but then we do have the people that we wanted to reach, the people that this game was made for, the people who played a lot of shooters and wanted a twist to play something different and quite difficult. And yeah, they seem to really like it.
That's incredible.
I think that's the
Sorry, go ahead.
I think that's the thing that's most excited me is that there's real like proper fans of it. Like I think a lot of people say like if I want to make one person's favorite game of all time. It's just one person. Because if someone said, "Oh man, that's my favorite game of all time,"
Right.
Now someone who's going to listen to this is going to lie and send me an email saying, "Oh, this is my favorite game," and I'm going like,
yeah.
"Tell me that in 20 years."
How does that work? You got to make a really good game. It has to be unique, and you have to make sure they play it when they're 13.
Yes.
And then,
Yes. Yeah.
Send everyone.
But see, that's the age where like. I was playing. We were talking earlier on about Oblivion and like that kind of thing. So like
totally,
yeah.
and that was when I fell in love with Unreal Tournament and Quake and so many of those games, which has been a interesting genre to be a fan of in modern era. Because of course we have Doom, which has been wonderful. I was playing Serious Sam 4 a couple of days ago. There are games out there, but if somebody does it right, it almost feels like a gift to that community. Like Devil Daggers felt like, just like a gift to the like arena shooter, I don't know, gun stuck in the middle of the viewfinder, that type of, Quake 1 sort of thing. Like that whole thing. And this felt, I got those vibes off this when I remember you guys emailed me about this months ago. It kind of had that same thing. And I was like, oh, that's a neat idea. And I like what they're going. Like, I wonder if they'll stick the landing. And from playing the game, like, it is very surprising that it's from such a tiny team because, it plays great. Like, it has that flow. And that's the other side of the problem with that audience is that they will love a game like that, but they have a pretty high bar for, like, I don't know what we call it today, like playability, like controls and flow and difficulty and those types of things. What's a bit like...
We put in Quake jumping just for those people. Because we knew that they'd want that.
That's awesome. What's that feedback been like from those folks then? Have you had many post-release patches or tweaks or any stuff that you're adding in based on feedback from that community?
So we've released one patch so far, which is just addressing some bugs that have that need fixing and stuff like that. But we're mostly focused on the moment coming up with like a big update with new content and stuff like that for the game, just to add some like replayability in there. Like we've noticed with a lot of streamers that play the game, streamers love to be completionists and just like do everything, like complete on this character, get this time and stuff like that. So we're working on stuff like new characters, new levels, just to maybe, a few months from now, bring those people back. Maybe they've played the game so much that, it's got a bit stale. So at that point, we can come in and bring in some new stuff for them to go on. But yeah, it's been great.
Nice, yeah.
Sure.
That's a solid idea, just having like a batch. It's funny, like that's kind of how Steam works a lot these days, I guess, is that if there's like, I think about Rocket League being one of these games that did this for a lot of people where they'd come out with a big chunk of stuff and suddenly everyone will come back again. It's sort of like you curve that you sort of have of engagement with games over a long period of time. And then you guys are interested in doing a sequel already? You're kind of thinking along those lines, or is that further down the road? Because I mean, you have to be very time management focused when you have a game that's popular and a small team working on it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that just comes down to ignoring certain things, like turning off social media or whatever. But like, I think we kind of I remember like watching I think it was the Bethesda doc even again, and they were talking about how they did Fallout and then Elder Scrolls and then Fallout and Elder Scrolls, Fallout and Elder Scrolls. And the reason they do it is so that they don't get fatigued.
Yeah.
So I think if we were going to do another BPM, which I think we really want to do, it probably wouldn't be the next thing that we do. I think we'd change it up so that next time we did it, we'd have all this new experience that we'd like built from making something else. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's certainly. But like we are massively excited. Like the game has done so well, so it's we have a serious possibility of like scaling up now.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's always interesting to see, because we've covered a lot of studios who have had, original like first games on Steam or sequels on Steam or, a new franchise, but from a studio that's well known. And if you have that type of like early player base, like it puts you guys in such a great spot, because every time, like every Steam sale that's going to happen now for the next couple of months, you drop that thing, because it's $20 I think at the moment. You drop that thing by a couple of bucks, everyone goes to the page, sees 2,000 positive reviews. You know what I mean? It's like it has that sense of a game there where it's like, oh okay, yeah, there's an engine, a locomotive attached to this thing now, which may serve you guys for months hopefully, and it could be years easily down the line. Congratulations, first of all. Thank you. It's pretty cool. The other side of it I wanted to talk to you about is how you guys doing sort of personally, right? Because obviously releasing games during COVID, we talked to a lot of folks about the difficulties of that. But also having a successful game is stressful in its own way, having to respond to a community of fans, and then that sort of like background noise pressure of trying to make sure that they're constantly happy with the game. Like there's no shortage of updates or patches you could do at this stage. How are you guys doing 2 weeks out from launch?
Yeah. Good. I think we're doing okay. It's funny. It's funny, the whole COVID thing and working from home, and but yeah, it's been okay. And the feedback we've been getting and the criticism and stuff like that hasn't actually been that bad, which is because I'm always the kind of person that expects everything to go wrong and people to be like, this is the worst thing ever. But it hasn't, and it's gone really well. Did you want to add to that, Dave?
Yeah, I went through a launch of a multiplayer shooter in the past. I don't want to name it because I feel like I might. Yeah, it would be unfair, but and it was very, very stressful launch where we managed to crash like we actually crashed like a Google subservice, and like there was 3 days where the game just would not work, and yeah, so I've got a lot of PTSD
right
about game launches. There's been a lot of paranoia. Like if someone sends an email saying, "Hey, the game crashes," I immediately assume like it's something terribly wrong that we've done, and not just a quirk of the engine we're working with or a quirk of their hardware setup. But yeah, I think things are working out now. It was very, very stressful. I think Josh would agree that the end of making this game was incredibly stressful. Like when you work for a company, they force you to work. When you don't work for a company, you force yourself to work. And so like I've got 2 kids and I've been working. I think I worked 16-hour days for like the last couple of months, and it's not really fair on the wife. But like it's payback time. It's holiday time.
Yeah.
I mean,
does it feel that way?
Yeah, it does now.
You
but
have to take the days though, because sometimes that feeling of its holiday time is almost enough to just get you through a couple more days. But if you don't actually take the time off, you never feel it.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. We've taken one day so far, both of us, the same day.
Yeah. So next couple of months, are you gonna take some time off or plugging away on updates, or have you even looked that far ahead yet? Because I know when you're still in the wake of a launch, you're probably have not even at the stage where you've sort of planned ahead the next little segment of time.
Yeah, I think in terms of the game and stuff like that, I think we've had meetings about what we're doing next with it and stuff, and I think at this point we're quite confident. In terms of holiday, I think we both want to take a holiday away, like a week or so or something like that. I think it's just good generally, like Dave was just saying before, I just add to that, I would get up and come in and in my office and start working, and you just keep working until whatever you were doing is done.
Yeah.
So that could have been 8 till 8, it could be 12 to 16 hour days. But it's been so nice now to just do 9 to 5, and then when it hits 5, I can turn my computer off and go and do something completely different. Because it really does affect you. Like I used to be a very avid PC gamer, but now when 5 o'clock comes, I go away from my PC and I don't want to turn it on again, and I go downstairs and just hit on the Xbox or something, and it's like, it feels so good to do that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It feels like everyone's sort of experiencing that. I had that a couple of when I started Noclip and started working editing at home. I now have a separate room. This room here I use for playing games and also recording the podcast, and I actually work in a different room at a different PC because I same thing. I was not playing PC games at all. I default to the console or play a Switch or God forbid go outside.
It's so important.
Yeah, it's wild. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Your flattery in Noclip's very, very, very slight inspiration for a small section of the game that you never regret. That's
a great. I never actually thought of it like that.
That's awesome. I mean, yeah, it's funny. We were talking about the folks who can't do have problems with beats. I think did you maybe sidestep a colorblind issue by having 3 colors because they're all within the same? I guess there's different types of colorblind, but
I think I've had colorblind friends who thinks the game looks great.
Awesome, perfect. Yeah, that's the future. Then I love it. Thank you both so much for coming on. Congratulations on your success with the game, and congratulations on also just getting a game out, especially in 2020. Not an easy thing to do. Go enjoy your Welsh pizza, and who knows, we might catch up with you guys in the future and see what you're working on next.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Of course. And thanks to everyone for listening to the podcast this week. You can, of course, subscribe to us on youtube.com/noclippodcast for the video versions and watch all of our beautiful faces this week on the show. And if you're listening on iTunes or whatever, feel free to leave us a review or don't. Hope you're keeping well. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time on the podcast. Cheers.